Well, thank you everybody for joining. I really appreciate you all taking time into your day to join me on this short presentation on the top 10 most frequently asked questions about Oracle EPM today. I came up with this presentation because I've recently, probably the last few years, there are some common questions that we hear quite frequently from whether it's customers, prospective customers, and et cetera. And we felt like it would be a great opportunity to help talk about these. These are very, very commonly asked. And so I'm hoping that I can share some information, share some of my insights. But before I get started, just for those of you who don't know me, as Robin stated, I am the Chief Operating Officer for interRel Consulting. I've been in the EPM space for about 20 plus years now, with the last 10 being at interRel. So I've had the privilege of working at different consulting firms, having done S-Base and planning, but now I have the privilege of working with some of the best minds at interRel. For those of you who've been a part of this virtual conference, we really do appreciate it. We are so excited. A lot of you came out, virtually to join us, listen to a lot of great speakers from Oracle, some amazing partners, as well as some of our interRel employees. But we wanted to share and obviously let you know who we are. And I'm not going to go into this, but hopefully you figured this out by now after 4 days of presentations of who interRel is. And we just wanted to also share this, that we do have some upcoming webcasts and different demos that are going to be coming up regarding products. So if you want, take a look, take a screenshot of this. There's some great free material that we continually like to do. This is part of who we are. We're big on education, and so we want to make sure we share this with you. So please join us, again, because the learning will never, ever stop. Okay, so as I stated, I put this presentation together because really, the beauty that is Oracle EPM, things constantly change, names change, functionality keeps developing, things continue to mature and evolve, and it unfortunately causes a lot of questions. And I always say, Oracle is probably sometimes creates more questions than the Riddler himself. So it is one of those things that we wanted to make sure that we could at least, help level set as of, literally October 23rd of 2020, and be able to help share some of my insights and some of the questions I get, so that I can help, resolve maybe some of your questions, maybe some of your doubts, and help, alleviate it. So I'll jump right in and get to the first question. And the question we get quite frequently is, should I upgrade to 11.2 or on-prem, or should I move to the cloud? So, this is always a question. I always tell this to my customers. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you have to move to the cloud. I'm going to always tell them, like, it's really about options, and we're here to explain to you what those options are, some of what the pluses and minuses are when it comes to doing an upgrade versus moving to the cloud. Now, we understand that there are some, factors that are outside of your control as to why you don't want to move to the cloud. But again, I think you've been to some of the Mythbusters, presentations. Maybe some of you have heard, some of the other speakers talk about it. A lot of those other fears shouldn't come into play. Security, is cloud ready? Those are types of questions really that don't make any more sense given how long and how mature the cloud is now. Really, the question becomes, what are you prepared to do from a company standpoint? So when we talk about the EPM 11.2 upgrade, we want to make sure everybody understands, yes, you can absolutely upgrade. It helps extend your support, especially if you have a mandate from your company that says we have to stay on-prem. But we want to make sure everybody understands, like, this is an out-of-place upgrade. It is only a technical upgrade. There are really no true features and functionality. And I'll be upfront with everybody on this call and tell everybody that, from our understanding, and again, this is what we know as of today, there's no future functionality or features that are going to be coming out in the future. Is the way we've been, is our understanding to it. So you're going to be on a quote unquote older version of the EPM tool. And if you're okay with that, and you really, you're basically just putting on sort of on the back end some infrastructure upgrades for security, on like browsers and OSs, then absolutely, then you can go ahead and upgrade to 11.2. But you're not going to get anything with regard to new functionality, new features, updates to the software in and of itself, or the applications themselves. You're not going to ever get. So then the question becomes, well, if that's not what you're looking for, and you're looking for more of an updated user interface, you want more modern application and usage and features and functionality, then that's where the EPM Cloud is going to come into place. And this is where you want to consider that and say, okay, this is why I should be moving to the cloud. It is definitely a mature and stable product. You have to understand that actually all of the development from Oracle side is being poured into the cloud. So therefore, that means new functions, new features are coming out almost on a monthly basis. We're constantly seeing this product mature and change. And we're talking about not just one product, but we're talking about the whole suite of products. So we want to make sure everybody understands it really at the end when it comes down to it. If you're going to say, well, should I stay because there's parity between the two? The answer is no. There's definitely not parity. And I want to make it clear, EPM Cloud and 11.2, it's not about equal functionality. It's really more about your company saying, hey, are we ready to move to the cloud or not? And why should we? If you're going to ask me the question of the basic answer of why, it's because you're going to get the latest and greatest technology. It's like somebody telling me, well, I really love my iPod and I don't want to move my music over to my iPhone. Can I do it? Well, absolutely you can. Right? You could, of course, keep your iPod, but it doesn't necessarily mean, it's going to have all the features and functionalities of a new tool. So that's kind of how I typically present it to clients. I don't ever want to push anybody to feel uncomfortable about which way they're going to go, but I will say don't let anybody ever tell you that just upgrading your on-prem is going to give you the same features, or there's this hope, some safe harbor hope, 2 years from now that the features will be there. Because in my opinion, and from what I've seen, I don't believe that's the case. Next question. My applications are EPMA enabled, so what happens when I upgrade to 11.2? Well, the simple answer is your EPMA is no longer supported on 11.2. So, what really that means is you're gonna more than likely you're gonna have to move your applications to Classic, and you're going to have to utilize the new DRM restricted license option in order to maintain your metadata. What we've told, I remember, I think it was like 4 years back when they first started, and I was in a partner meeting and they were talking about EPMA going away. And I know that there are a lot of customers out there who loved it, and a lot of partners who kind of went, threw their arms up in the air saying, you can't do this. Well, Oracle's finally done it. And they basically have told you with 11.2, EPMA is gone. So, the question then becomes, so what are you going to do? And this is, I think, a huge factor and a consideration for if you're going to decide between even the cloud and your upgrade. Because again, if you need to realize what's going to end up happening. It's not just a simple upgrade anymore. You're going to have to not only upgrade into a new out-of-place upgrade, but you're going to also have to convert your applications, and then you're going to have to also implement a new DRM process. So those are some considerations, some things you're going to want to think about, especially if you love EPMA, you're going to have to give it up. There's going to come a point where, you're level 1, 2, 4, it's just going to go out of support. And so because of that, you're going to have to make that decision, obviously much sooner than later. Question 3, why should I move to the enterprise cloud license? And for those of you who don't know right now that there are essentially two license options that you have. One is what's called the standard license, and the other is the enterprise cloud license. What happens in the standard license is essentially you're purchasing a per user per month license for a single product. So a planning product, a consolidations product, and so you basically get, that product for, obviously a cheaper amount. What the difference though, when it comes to the enterprise bundle, is the full business process and all the products you get. So what you're seeing here in this, in this diagram is essentially the tools that come under the planning, under the close. You get profitability and cost management. You get different types of features and functionalities like Groovy, freeform planning, tax reporting. You get EDM. So again, the difference really is about, do you get the full bundle or do you go with, a single product? You also have to keep in mind, when it comes to planning, you're going to get a very, very confined box of, what type of application you get. And you only really get that one application with the three, plan types, and then, of course, with the modules. Outside of that, you don't get anything else. You really don't get the Groovy functionality with your custom plan types. You won't get freeform planning. So there's a lot, and then all of a sudden, you go to, you'll get narrative reporting, but you get it only in a quote-unquote light version of it, and you don't get much else. So then the question is, you're going to pay for that amount for this use of this one product, and you don't get to take advantage of really anything else outside of that. And, to give you an understanding, this is the pricing actually that, was the old pricing where they used to have, for example, PBCS and ePBCS, and what the new standard pricing is and the new enterprise bundle is. So as you can see here, the cost of a standard edition, this is retail for Oracle, is that it would be $250 per user per month for one product versus the enterprise bundle, which you get for $500 per user per month for all of the products. So, to me, I always feel like it's a no-brainer. By the way, if you do the standard edition, I think it's $250 per user per month, and then I think the add-on is $2,500 for another product. But I think at the end, what you're going to find is that the enterprise bundle is going to be the better bet. It is the more cost efficient, and I think honestly, functionality-wise and all the things you get with the enterprise bundle, it is a better deal. You get more flexibility, and you really are going to find yourself, I don't know how many of you are planning. For example, like I said, I was a planning consultant. I don't remember or recall ever a time where we were happy with one application, where a company that was mature enough using the planning product. And what you'll find is, you might have different considerations in different like security things and different processes or different functionalities you're going to find as you mature, and you're going to find that limitation under the standard edition. So that's why, I always say, think about the enterprise bundle. It's definitely going to help you, and it's actually a fully sort of a full solution for every company, and that's pretty much my recommendation. But again, either one you can go with and you can still implement. You're just going to see some pros and cons, obviously, when it comes to the standard edition. I'm going to pause for just a second because I did see a question come across. It says, what if our company isn't ready to use all the other functionality of EPM Cloud other than the consolidations? Seems like the lift to cloud is so much more time consuming compared to upgrade to 11.2. So yes, so I will say this. Thanks, Paulo, for this question. I'll answer it live, basically saying, absolutely understood. If your company's not ready to make the move, then sure, an upgrade is definitely an infrastructure upgrade. interRel, for example, estimates about 2 to 3 weeks per environment. Comparatively to doing an implementation, obviously that time is, there's a huge difference between, 9 weeks of an infrastructure upgrade versus a 4-month implementation of planning. The difference really is going to be, though, you're talking about features and functionality that you're not going to have. We're really talking about the fact of course, you could still do what you need to do at 11.2. It's just not, the difference is going to be is you're just not going to have what you're really looking for at the end. But the question, but at the end, can you do it? Of course you can. You can stay on it. So this is why I go back and I always say, I'm not sitting here saying you have to go to the cloud. You might hear this from your Oracle sales rep. You might hear this from other implementation partners. But I will tell you, like, you definitely have options. It isn't that it's an either or you have to move it or you're dead. That's not the point. The point is more about what are you ready for and what are you ready to invest in. So, okay. Next question. Should we really implement the Planning Cloud modules? I remember how terrible the on-prem modules were. This goes back to my heart. I will tell you that when I started as a consultant, the first implementation I was given was, after 11.2, but one of the ones that I was in charge of having to do was the workforce planning module. And I remember having to take it apart, account by account, rule by rule, understand every nuance and facet of it, and then have to unspool that, that mess of yarn and then try to roll it back up and to try to make it make sense. And I think I found myself customizing that module on multiple occasions, even, whether it was CapEx or workforce, I had to customize that solution a number of times, and it was just insanity. And to the point where I know most implementation firms and partners were just telling people, we're not going to implement anymore. You should go with a custom solution, and we're done. And that, that was our view of the world as well. Well, I will also, full disclosure, let you know that when these modules first came out, they were obviously called frameworks, and now they switched them back to call them modules. When they came back and they started to say, well, hey, you should start using them, obviously we all were very skeptical. And we started to look and we started to ask questions. And what we have found is that, the rules and, regulations that you need to abide by, what we've found is, those are great boxes, like what they give you, but we are finding that it is a much better made and better designed configurable solution. And what we have actually found is that it's better for us to use the out-of-the-box modules than it is for us to create a custom workforce application, for example. And the reason being is that there's a lot of features, enablement, they leverage a lot of Groovy now, especially with the modules. And I know Workforce was the first, and we're going to be seeing Groovy be implemented and changed in all the other frameworks. But what you're going to find is that that functionality of the modules actually now works. And this is why we have found great success, implementing the financials module, the workforce module. Now, I still tell our customers this though, and again, full disclosure, what we have found is that when it comes to the customer module, the CapEx module and the projects module, it is much more locked down. It is much more confined. There's a lot less configurability within those modules. So if you have a very peculiar way of which you do CapEx planning, if you do, project planning, that might not work for you. So this is where we always say, which is a lot less, quote unquote, flexible than the workforce module. So I do warn our clients about this, but it does do probably 80% of what you're looking for. But again, whatever that uniqueness that you might have in your company, and we can't put that into the into the CapEx module, that's going to come from the fact that we just can't change that. And we wouldn't want to customize it, and we wouldn't want to change it. So then that's where we come into the conversation of, should we go with the CapEx module out of the box, or should we come up with a, custom solution? So again, I just want to make sure you understand that there's definitely been huge strides and improvements. I will tell you that as an implementation firm, we have found that the out-of-box modules do work. We actually do it quite well, and we actually have implemented it on over a dozen different clients at this point. So we do feel comfortable. And I feel comfortable enough to say that our services group will say, can stand behind that product. Maybe not as confident when it comes to CapEx and when it comes to projects, at least when it comes to the adaptability for your business needs. And I think that's something that you're going to have to consider and think about when you go through requirements and design, but not necessarily. But again, I'll tell you about workforce, financials, we have found great success. Why do I need 19C if EPM comes with freeform planning? So this is an interesting fight we have found, because as many of you know, freeform planning comes, it's on the EPM side, while 19C is, I believe, technically it's on the database side of the house when it comes to Oracle. So there's definitely interesting conversations that we're having with customers, especially our customers who are converting and moving from on-prem to the cloud. And what they're finding is that, especially for those of you who have, like, for example, a planning application, and then you use Essbase, but then you use other Essbase native cubes, and you've created these applications to do other analysis or other data repositories, and then the question becomes, well, what do I do with these native cubes when I move to the cloud? Do I move to freeform planning within my EPM, or do I have to move to Essbase 19C? Now, what I will tell people is this: there's definitely some pros and cons with going to freeform planning versus going to Essbase 19C. The biggest one on freeform planning, the biggest pro is that you're still within the common EPM platform, right? So that means you're using the same UIs, you get the same forms, dashboards, calcs, different things that you can have are all built in for you to use freeform planning for an Essbase, in essence, an Essbase cube, right? And remember, when it comes to freeform planning, it is Oracle managed because it is a true SaaS product. But on the other hand, when you look at 19C, what you'll find is, yes, it is a completely quote unquote separate technology because it sits on its own server. It's actually, when you look at it from a new hybrid, so freeform planning is the quote old hybrid version or technology versus 19C, which is actually the updated and newest version of the hybrid technology, as well as the fact that you got to remember, it is really customer managed. It's not a true SaaS product. Even if it sits on OCI, Essbase 19C is not a true SaaS. So, and then what do you have to use? Well, you would typically use you would use it just like you did in the old, sort of more old school, products like SmartView or Excel. Those are the tools that are going to connect to it, right? It's not a cloud interface. But to me, the biggest factor is the number of cubes we're talking about. So, if I'm talking to customers right now who have, give or take, 4 or 5 native Essbase cubes, and they probably might create maybe 1 or 2 more in the future. Well, in that case, my opinion really is, and that you're buying planning anyway, is just to go with the enterprise bundle, stay in freeform planning, and move those native cubes into freeform planning. It just makes more sense. You're not paying extra money for it. It comes with the bundle. You might as well, because it's going to be manageable. However, I do have other customers who have 1,000 Essbase cubes, or even greater. I'm talking to one customer right now. It's 2,500 Essbase cubes. Do I put them in freeform planning? Well, there I would say the answer to me I would probably say no. And the reason why would be is that the one thing about freeform planning is you can only have 1 cube per pod, okay? So think of it as a per URL. So you would be able to put 1 application or 1 cube per pod, and then you would have to procure a second pod for your second cube and a third pod for your third cube, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how the freeform planning pods work. Essbase 19C is just like Essbase. Like for those of you who long for the days of EAS, you had all your applications, and you could have them on one server, and you could have 20 different apps or 1,000 cubes. That's where it would sit, and you could manage them all there, and you would manage that interface all together. So obviously, would I recommend having 1,000 different URLs or 1,000 different pods for freeform planning? Probably not. I mean, that's probably, to me, I don't think it's worth it. I think, from a maintenance standpoint and accessibility and user friendliness, I would probably recommend 19C. So this is where I come back and tell people, it really comes to me, while there's some features and functionalities 19C will give you that are greater, is it so much greater that you should go away from freeform? The answer is no. But if you have a certain amount of cubes that are going to make it impossible for you to manage, then yes, absolutely, I say you need to put the investment in and go to 19C, because just the sheer number, it's going to be much better and much more manageable in 19C, okay? So how many Oracle EPM Cloud Pods do I need, and how soon do I need them to start implementation? Now, this is a very, very important question for those of you who are considering purchasing the cloud, getting ready for your implementation with your implementation partner. So if your implementation partner has not told you this yet, I'm here to tell you. you have got to make sure you have your pods ready, I would say from day one, okay? My recommendation is, because the way I believe implementations should be done, you have to have at least your first pod up and ready to go, right? Now, I deal with a lot of projects right now that are multi-stream. So meaning I have a planning, they want to do planning, consolidations with, data management and as well as metadata management. So it becomes a question of, well, how many pods is that? Well, I will tell you, essentially what you're going to find, and this is a very common technical architecture, I think you've seen this multiple times throughout, the products, but what you're finding here is these are all the different products that you could, potentially use under the Enterprise Cloud Bundle. So what I tell people is when you look at the Enterprise Bundle here, right, and just, in a nice, bulleted way, right here, what I've listed are 8 different products. Well, essentially, you need 8 different pods if you were going to do all of these at one time, right? So if you think about it and go, well, wait a minute, so how many pods do I need? Each of these needs its own separate pod. So you would want to make sure that when you're talking to your Oracle rep or getting ready and signing that BOM, you're going to want to make sure that you figure out the number of pods and make sure that happens. It's my understanding, just a warning to you all, if you don't do the pods up ahead, my understanding is that it's at a minimum 4 weeks it takes for the pods to to be released to you, okay, to you to have access once you put the request in. So imagine, a 4-week delay to your implementation, or everybody, is stopped because you realize, oh, I need another pod, and now I got to wait 4 weeks. I will tell you, that's my understanding, is it's the minimum. I've heard it be as bad as 6 to 8 weeks. So my recommendation is that you go ahead and, procure those pods up ahead in time so that you can make sure that you have the right number of pods. Make sure you talk to your implementation partner of how many pods they think you'll need. I will tell you because, again, remember, like I said, every freeform cube, every freeform, like S-Space native, S-Space cube, you're going to move into freeform planning, requires its own pod. So just because you say, well, I'm going to have planning, and I'm only going to do planning, but I have 4 native cubes, that means you're going to need at least 5, separate pods. If you're going to implement narrative reporting, now you're at 6. So these are the different things you just need to count and ask yourself before you get into it. You might also ask yourself, if I have security considerations for planning, do I need more than 1 planning pod? And, do I need like a separate pod for my workforce versus my financials? That's all going to come from a security conversation. But again, it's better to have them up front than it is to not have them. Now, a question came across asking, can you delete the pod if you don't need them? I will tell you, Michael, I'm not 100% sure if you can actually delete it because the pods are free. So, I'm sure if you really wanted to give it back, you could give it back to Oracle. But I'm going to tell you, there are different ways to use your pods. Like, for example, what if, like sandboxing, right? You might want to keep a separate pod to do that type of stuff. Or if you're talking about implementing planning and you're going to find yourself having, wanting to think about, a different model or a different hierarchy, and you don't want to disturb your current application in your planning pod, you're going to have it. So to me, it's always better to have more pods than it is to have less pods. As of right now, the pods are free, they're unlimited, and again, I'll leave that to Oracle to answer, but as of today, my understanding is they remain unlimited. Another question was, if you ask for additional pods, the new ones will be over the same domain or other domain. Ideally, they're within the same domain, as in like they're within the planning domain. But I can't answer that question. I will tell you, this is why we tell you to ask for it up front, rather than asking for just a couple now and then asking for more later. I have heard some nightmares where the pod that was released was in the wrong domain, or it was in the wrong data center, and it caused more delays, which is the reason why I was saying at a minimum you'll see 4 weeks, but if something goes awry, then you're going to find it, you're going to have to tell Oracle, no, it's wrong, they need to change it, and they're going to have to shift it over, then it takes another few weeks for that to happen. So just keep that in mind is all I want to say. Okay, next, I'll move on. So is FCC ready for prime time? Now, I will be the first to tell you that, full disclosure, I'm not an FCC expert. But I do know, based upon, when this product first came out and we started implementing it about 3 years ago, it was definitely not what I would have called ready for prime time. There were a lot of problems with FCC. It was trying its best. It was, it was a 1.0 product that acted like a 1.0 product. And I think, the sheer number of service requests and SRs we had to throw out there were just, it just never stopped. And the biggest problem we saw, and we had run into, and we've run into this with multiple clients over and over again, especially when it first started, were consolidation times. And so that was the number one criticism. It was people were saying, hey, my HFM consolidation times are, 10 minutes, and now it turned into 3 hours. What the hell is going on? Well, because in my opinion, honestly, and again, this is not a Oracle opinion, or I will even say interRel's opinion, this is my opinion. It's because I believe FCC was released as a not for ready for prime time usage. And so what we found is that over those couple of years, over the last couple of years or now we can say, yes, we do believe there are notable features and changes in the fundamental way it's been built and designed that we believe that it is now ready for prime time. And we're actually seeing that uptick now within the last year and a half or so. What we have seen is not only is we're seeing parity with regard to functionality with HFM, but we're seeing parity with functionality with times, with consolidation times and performance, which is absolutely the most critical thing for our clients. Having bells and whistles is one thing. I'm a big believer that the application needs to work because obviously you can't sit around waiting for 2-hour consolidation times per period for 12 periods. It just doesn't make sense. So what we have found is because of, for example, the new hybrid technology behind it, the way they redesigned FCC in the back end, we believe that what we have found now is with regard to performance, that we are seeing a lot more parity against HFM, which gives us a lot better sense that FCC is truly ready for our customers and to go live with. I will warn you, however, it is critical that the implementation partner that you choose, that the people on this project, that they understand SBase. They have to understand how to build a rule, and they have to understand what's going to take place when they build FCC rules, because it's no longer HFM. It's no longer VBA rules. So it is different. It is a different technology. So what we are telling people is that is the one thing you'll find is that with customers who have performance issues and when they find stumbling blocks with their FCC applications, much of it has to do with poorly designed rules, poorly designed just setup and design of how metadata was set up. A lot of that has to do because you have to start thinking much more SBase-like than you did when it was a relational database or when you were working in VBA. Okay. The question was, maybe someone can answer this: can FCC do segment matrix consolidation? I will be honest with you, I will have to get back to you on that. I don't know, I couldn't tell you. And the second one is, and can currency simulations be done smarter in FCC than in HFM? It's my understanding, again, that the parity within all of the functionality in HFM, and that there's actually more functionality in FCC today than you're going to even find in HFM. But I'm happy to take that, and this is a sort of the journey, right? of what we've seen from FCC and how it's sort of built and at what point we're seeing how it compares to HFM. So these are all the different functionalities and different things we've seen over that time and sort of the maturity of the product. So, but Paulo, I'll take your question and I'll make sure my consolidations team can get back to you and reveal that question. Okay. So what are the data integration options while you're on the cloud? So, I do tell people this is not obviously a very straightforward answer, because the answer kind of depends on, answering a lot of these questions. And so we go through these questions during ideation to try to make sure, we understand what the different products, what do you have? What are your sources? What are your targets? Are we talking about on-prem targets or on-prem sources, excuse me? Are we talking about cloud sources? Are we talking, which EPM or BI solution are we really talking about? Do you need drill through? How often, is data being refreshed? What type of transformations and automations are we talking about? So all of these questions come into play, because ultimately, even when you talk about the EPM cloud, there are multiple ways of getting data into EPM cloud. And the primary one that right now we are recommending the most is data management. Data management is a cloud product. It does allow, when you utilize, for example, the data integration agent, what you're going to find is that it can connect to on-prem sources, and we can utilize data management to integrate data into the EPM cloud. And it's actually working to the point where we're not finding performance issues. We have found performance issues. You could still use FDME, but we've still found some performance issues because, again, we're talking about an on-prem product that is utilizing, trying to integrate data to a cloud product. Now, there are some things that FDME can do that data management can't do. So these are all the questions that come into play and considerations. But again, all the other ones, whether we're talking about utilizing web forms or Smart View or the simplified UI or even Groovy coding, these are all the different ways you can be getting data into your EPM cloud. So you have a lot of options, and there is really no quote-unquote added cost for the majority of these outside of FDME. So this is what you're going to find is, when we come in and we talk to you about a solution, it's going to come down to some questions about what do we need to help transform, and we'll get you the right, data integration solution for you, especially for the cloud. The one thing that you should also consider is, whether or not you should be implementing EDM, especially when you're on the enterprise bundle. You're going to find that you get a limited license of EDM, and it comes with it. Well, the question becomes, well, why do I care and why do I need it? Well, you got to realize that this is the next generation DRM. This is your hub and spoke. It is going to be your centralized tool that we highly recommend, that's going to help manage all of your dimensions and hierarchies across and centralize that across your financial systems. So to your ERPs, to your S-based queues, your planning, consolidations, all the things that you're going to be facing, this is what EDM is going to help. And it's going to help manage your common dimensionality so that you're not, I'm not talking about having to go into my planning application and update my hierarchies there and then jump to my consolidations and am I using the right hierarchy? Is this the updated one? Is this the wrong one? Is this the one I got from last week? You're not dealing with that. EDM is going to help you audit that. It's going to help you manage that. It's going to help drive that. And at the end, really what you're going to find is, because EDM is a business user-driven tool, this is what's going to help. You're not waiting on IT to update your systems. This is now going to be something where your business users, those who own these different systems, are going to be the ones who are helping to control and make sure your metadata is in sync across the board. So this is where we believe wholeheartedly that EDM is the future. It is something that you want to consider and take a look at because, again, it comes with your bundle, and secondarily, we do believe it's going to make your lives way, way, way easier. And my last question, as I'm running up against the time, is, do I really need to know Groovy? Well, I will tell you the simple answer is yes. I will, just so everybody knows that, from a implementation firm standpoint, for me as someone who manages our services division, we made it a point to ensure that our entire services, our planning and S-based organization, were 100% trained on Groovy. That we actually went out and took 2 or 3 days to get a formal Groovy training so that all of our consultants learned Groovy technology. And here's the reason why. Because we find that there is still limitations with business roles, and Groovy scripting is sort of the new way. And not only is it the new quick way to do things and get calculations and data movements done quickly, you're going to find that right now the modules, like I stated earlier, are going to start utilizing Groovy more. So because of that, you have to learn Groovy. It is a technology. It's kind of an interesting thing because the language isn't like brand new. It's actually been around for a long time, but it is something that we're finding works very effectively. And we're implementing Groovy across almost every implementation we do because we're finding it works faster. It works better for our customers. It moves data and it just calculates things so much quicker. So, what you're seeing here in this list is just simply limitations that we do find in business rules still that get solved by Groovy. So that's our recommendation. I want, and again, I don't want you to feel like intimidated by this. It's definitely something that you can learn. But I will tell you, it is part of almost every implementation we do going forward. So yes, please, for those of you who are admins, go learn Groovy, go find a Groovy book. There's a lot of material out there. I know that Kyle Goodfriend, does different blogs about it and different posts, and you can find some on our PIF videos as well. So I highly recommend you go out and learn Groovy and pick up that technology. And with that, I want to thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I know that, it's always kind of, hopefully I answered some questions that maybe were on top of your mind to help you in your journey in EPM and try to, as you kind of maneuver the waters in Oracle EPM. I think I have time for maybe one question. And the question was, does our company currently offer Groovy training? As of today, right now, Linda, the answer is no. We don't offer a formal class on Groovy training, but the fantastic thing about this session is my practice director that runs our training program has now heard this, and so now she knows that we're going to have to create a Groovy training class. So that is definitely something that will be on our roadmap, and we'd be happy to try to get that out there to you all. All right, and with that, I want to thank everybody so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I know there are a lot of great sessions going on for the rest of today. So again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful time. Please reach out to us if you have any other questions. We'd be happy to answer them and do our best to get you the information you need. So good luck, everybody. Take care.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Really appreciate that informative presentation.